Hey, we're live. There we go. Good evening, beautiful people. We're back again. I can't believe it's Friday again already. I don't know what happened to the week. I blinked. I was supposed to have a meeting last Friday, and I thought it was this Friday because I've basically lost a week. So I don't even know where that week's gone, and I don't think I'm going to get it back. So if you're joining us live tonight on Facebook, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're joining us on YouTube, woohoo, check us out, being down with the kids and broadcasting to YouTube. We're also on Twitter, and I will also be posting this episode to the podcast. So you might not see our beautiful faces, but you will hear our gorgeous tones without our faces present. So this week on the Not So Secret Writers Club, we've got the lovely Joanna as per usual. There she is in all her beautiful glory. And this week we've also got the lovely Sandra Lamb, who is one of the newest recruits to the Rite of Passage Growth Academy. She joined us a little later than the rest of them, so she had to really play catch up and get her book done fairly quickly. And she was also the only non-fiction writer in the group at that time, which was amazing because it gave us more diversity, more variety, and I just loved that it brought something different to the party. There's the lovely Jane has just joined us. Jane, author of the Cactus Growers Club. How does that sound, Jane? Author of. Evening to you, my lovely. Thank you for joining us. And if you join us throughout the interview and you've got any questions or you want to ask Sandra anything, then I'm sure she'd love to answer. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Sandra.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Amazing. Nice I've been looking forward to it. We were just chatting off air before we went live, and I've had the pleasure of editing Sandra's book this week, and we'll talk about that in detail in a moment. But it was really lovely for me because I get a sneak preview of all the books because I get to proofread. I get hot off the press. So Sandra, tell us a little bit. Well, let's start with telling people a little bit about you and what you do, and then we can go on for your inspiration after that.
Okay, yeah. So what do I do? Well, primarily I was trained as a physiotherapist, and then as the years went by, I also added some additional skills. As I wanted to bring the body and mind connection together, I trained as a clinical hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist and a BWRT practitioner. So now I offer both physiotherapy and stress and anxiety therapy. Oh, in addition to that, I'm a Pilates instructor as well. So I really do bring the body and mind together.
The lady who does it all. Okay, and you're quite passionate about that, aren't you, Sandra?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having worked in sort of healthcare for, a very long time, I kind of see that the specialism sometimes ends up with people being dealt with in such sort of silos. And I think it's really important to connect the whole body and the mind together. And it's really great that sort of the latest government guidelines are suggesting that we do approach things in this way now. So it is becoming more widely accepted, even if it's taken a while for that to sort of roll out in practice. But I think it's really important for people to understand how much they themselves need to take responsibility for their own well-being. And there's things that we can do as individuals to make a difference, because sometimes we just let life happen to us, and we do actually need to take it by the what's-its and what we need to
absolutely.
Make
we
sure
just sort of go, that's it, I've just got to suffer in silence. And I've spoken about this a lot with Jackie Sansom, another one of our writers, etc., about how mad it is that we separate the mind and the body. That the fact that we even imagine that the mind is separate from the body is nuts, isn't it? You know, it's quite. Oh, hi, Zoe's just joined us. Lovely to have you here. So the fact that we don't, you know, I mean, and hopefully it is changing, like you say, but the fact that we don't see the impact that our mind can have on our bodies is a bit bonkers. I was speaking to Natasha Boardman-Steer. She does a lot of work with sort of vulnerable adults. She herself has fibromyalgia. She had quite a lot of trauma in her life for personal reasons. I won't divulge all of those. And she definitely thinks her fibromyalgia was as a result of that. And she is really passionate about, you can't separate one from the other, because if you're feeling down, you tend to feel physically a bit poorly, don't you? And if you feel physically a bit poorly, you tend to feel a bit down. So it's just, it seems mad that we treat it so separately.
Absolutely. When there is just such an obvious physical response to our emotions, you know, we can feel our heart rate changing and things like that, you know, when our mood changes. So it's just a natural connection, really, that we just can't ignore, really. And as I say, it's good that, you know, people are starting to recognise it's out there, but we're still in a situation where we're having to convince people a lot of the time. And once they've got the information, then it just makes complete sense to them. But sometimes there's this, oh, well, what do you mean, you know, my emotions are impacting it? It's, you know, is it that you think I'm imagining this problem, and it's not. So yeah, it's there's definitely a huge connection, and like you say, fibromyalgia is one of those conditions where if you don't address the underlying emotions, and when I call it what's sitting in that stress bucket, if you like, you're only looking at half the picture.
And that's the thing, you know, when you say it like that, there are physiological responses to our emotions, aren't we? You know, if you're excited, your heart races. If you're scared, you feel a bit, you know, that actually is a physical response. So we can't ignore that happens. And you think about people who've been through trauma, you know, or bereavement, or, you know, how many times do those people then get quite ill because their body, that's a physical reaction, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And the clients I work with very often, I do, particularly persistent pain, you know, very often have to, you know, say, okay, so what was going on around the time or just before this pain started, because there will be a connection. And I had a client once who, she was under she had fibromyalgia, and she was under two different doctors. She was under a psychiatrist, and she was under a rheumatologist. And she said that she thought there was conflict between the two opinions, because the rheumatologist said there's a definite physical problem here, is definitely not, you know, psychiatry related. It's a physical problem. We can see the changes in all your bloods and this and that and the other. And then the psychiatrist was saying there's definitely emotional connection to the problem that you've got, and you need to get some support in that area. So she came to me sort of feeling like she was conflicted, and I said, no, they're both right. They are both right. It's okay. They're just seeing it from a different place, but they're not joining it up. I'm not saying that's all of them, but that is in this instance.
I'm sure that happens a lot. And there still is a lot of stigma about mental health, isn't there? There's still, it's seen, my lovely friend Jackie would say it's a bit woo-woo, you know, it's, oh, well, that's a bit sort of made up and stiff upper lip, you just got to get on with it and grin and bear it. You know, there's still that sort of feeling of, well, it's, you know, it's because feeling like a bit of a failure if you're allowing your emotions to get on top of you. There's all of that really still exists a bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You know, it's about our vulnerabilities, and our society very much encourages people not to show their vulnerabilities. But all the time you're pushing them under the surface and trying to keep them suppressed, it actually creates this physiological stress within us that has, you know, other effects, and people don't realise that. So when we face those vulnerabilities and we deal with them, we can move past them and actually feel a whole lot better as a result.
Yeah, and that's a strength, not a weakness, isn't
it?
I mean,
absolutely.
I'm always amazed, you know, like people don't feel a failure if they have a you know, a headache tablet, if they've got a headache, do they? You don't feel a failure if you've had to go for, you know, treatment, if you've got cancer, or you've got, you know, you see that as a, well, I need to get treatment for that. But if you address sort of psychological problems, or, you know, kind of mental health problems, like, oh, well, I can't do that, because that's, you know, it's just mad, isn't it, really?
And because I do both physical and emotional, I see that time and time again. People are quite happy to come and get their back pain treated, or the sore neck, or the sore shoulder, or whatever, and they don't mind who knows about it. But when people are having treatment for sort of stress and anxiety, it's something that they don't always want to share. They don't always want to you know about it, which is fine, you know, it is fine. And obviously we respect that, and always provide confidentiality, but it is almost a reflection of how society see it.
I bet they get a bit of sort of defensiveness, is there? Sometimes.
Well, it can be, but I think sometimes it's just about people's perception of how people will see them if they're exposing these vulnerabilities, because they've spent a lifetime of probably trying to hide them all, and that's why they're in the situation that they are in. So sometimes it's more of a challenge to get people to go, yeah, I've had this this therapy, and it's done me an amazing job. I do get lots of lovely testimonials, but I don't always feel that people want to put their names on, which again is absolutely fine.
And it's quite a personal journey, isn't it? It's often a personal journey. I completely understand that, but so having,
there are personal things that other people probably wouldn't want to share. If you'd gone to a Robs and Garnier appointment or something, you probably wouldn't want to share that either.
People don't want to know that.
There is a limit.
There is such a thing as too much information, isn't there?
Exactly.
So thinking about all of that, then tell us about. So obviously, all of this was the inspiration for your book, wasn't it? All of this. That I love the fact that you wanted to be a physiotherapist at the age of 10. I mean, that's so random, isn't it?
Yeah, I can remember. Well, before that, I always thought I wanted to be a nurse. So even from about age 4, I was like, "Guess I'm going to be a nurse." And I can remember I was standing on the school playing field talking to a friend, and for some reason we were talking about what her mum did, and she told me that she was a physiotherapist. And I was like, "Well, what's that?" And she told me all about it, and I was like, "Well, oh yeah." And I can remember that. That's what I want to do. That is what I'm going to do, and that's what I did.
That's amazing. Well, how lovely to have your calling at that young age.
It is strange, really. Despite careers advisors kind of saying, "Oh, well, maybe you don't want to do that, and maybe you should try and do this instead. It's very difficult to get into, blah 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 blah." I was just like, "No, that's what I'm going to do." And
good girl.
1984, I trotted off to London and trained at King's.
Good for you. Good for you. Bit of girl power there going on.
Yeah.
So tell us about your book then, Sandra.
Yeah, so it's called Calm Your Worry Warrior and Allow Your True Self to Appear.
Lovely.
So it's about recognising that living life with our stress response highly activated means that we can't always act or think or feel how we want to. It's giving you some strategies, some advice and different techniques to follow that will allow you to begin to calm your worry warrior. Obviously, first it's about identifying that and recognising what that means to have a worry warrior sitting in the background like this all the time. And there's a process that I've developed that helps people follow a sort of step-by-step process, if you like, in order to be able to change things. Now, obviously, as a therapist, I use particular techniques to help within that sort of framework, if you like. But this gives people sort of do-it-yourself guide of what you can start to look at to help move from that sort of life living behind stress and anxiety to living with a life where you can be your true self.
Lovely. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, oh God, and most of it was like, well, that's common sense, but until someone actually lays it out for you and you go, oh, for goodness sake, why don't I do more of that? It is quite a common sense approach. That's what I liked about the book. It was very there wasn't a lot of jargon because we're not all therapists. We haven't had your 20 odd years of experience. So it was very easy to read. It was easy to understand, and it's not stuff that is so difficult because I think when things are too difficult to apply, then people are, oh, do you know what? Like some of these diets. I've tried some of these diets. I tried the FODMAP diet. Goodness me.
Which one?
The FODMAP is something to do with fructose, and they recommend it for IBS. It's a giant list of things you can't eat. It's so complicated. Like there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to which, like, you can eat artichokes but you can't eat, or you can eat chocolate but you can't eat green beans. Or it's bizarre. It's a really bizarre, and I found it so difficult. I think I thought, you know what, I am never going to stick to that because it's too hard.
It's got to be doable, isn't it? It's got to fit in with your life, really.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's got to be realistic, hasn't it? And that's what I really liked about it, because I thought, you know, that we'll sort of talk about some of the techniques you mentioned in a bit, but some of the things you thought, yeah, I could easily do that in a day, or I could, you know, and a lot of it really, I thought, is just about, a bit like with the mindfulness, it's just about taking the time to reflect, just about taking the time to consider, rather than, you know, me and Joanne have talked about this, hurtling through your life at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You never give your brain the chance to, you know, an athlete wouldn't do that to their body, except we expect our brain to work on overdrive the whole time with never a break, and then we wonder why we feel a bit stressed or a little slightly bit psychotic at the end of the week. But you know, it's just about really that, a lot of reflection, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And it's a structure to follow to allow you to reflect, really. That's exactly right. And that's what we don't do. And obviously, if you are working with a therapist, then that's what they help you to do. Because things just go whizzing around in your head and you don't know. I mean, people come in sometimes and they'll just say, oh, God, am I rambling? I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm taking it all in and I'm making some sense of it. And then I'll feed it back to you. And hopefully it will make more sense to you then. And that's kind of what the process does. It allows you to break down the little steps to look at the different areas that might be triggering things for you, and then giving a step-by-step guide as to what you can do to try to change that.
Excuse me, but because the other thing as well is, when you're in something, it's sometimes hard to see what's going on, isn't it? When somebody's looking, we're all great at giving other people advice for their problems, aren't we? We go, well, you should do that, and then you look at yourself and you think, well, maybe I should try that too. It's a lot easier to be reflective, isn't it, when it's not,
that's right. I mean, that's what we do, as like you say, as friends sometimes, don't we? That's why, you know, you have a chat with a friend and it all seems clear and it all seems to make sense, because you do actually get that chance to reflect, and someone else can sort of push back to you and say, hang on, have you thought about this, and have you thought about that? Whereas this gives you the chance to start asking those questions to yourself.
Jane has said, and this is a fair point, Jane, and I think this is something we don't do. Jane says, is it about giving yourself permission to have that reflective moment?
Absolutely, and taking the decision that it's time to do something different, because very often people don't even realise that they can. They don't even realise there is another way. And that's one of the reasons I've written the book, because I want more people to realise that you can do something about it. And time again, you hear people say, oh, well, I'm a bit of a worrier, that's just who I am. But what you'll realise when you read the book is it's not, it's who you've become.
Yeah, that was a very fair point. And I think, going back to Jane's point, we often, you know, we sort of, we haven't got time for that. But actually, if you make the time, you end up with more time, because you're, you know, it's like when you're super busy, you run around like a headless chicken. As soon as you make a list and you slow down, you're much more productive, aren't you? It's the same with life, isn't it? If you don't give yourself that permission to take that time, you don't ever find the time, and you're much less productive, because you're usually shattered and miserable and grumpy and nothing's not working anyway. But what sort of try and maybe give people a bit of an insight. So what is it about your, so how might your worry warrior present itself?
Often people that are constantly thinking about what's going to happen, what has happened, perhaps anticipating the worst and trying to make sure that they avoid that. Maybe somebody that's feeling overwhelmed, not really knowing why, or not understanding why they feel like there's just too much going on. So it's about recognizing the pattern of your thinking, that it sits more in a negative rather than a positive, with that expectation that, and you know, sometimes people do say, well, I'm a very positive person, and they are trying to look for the positive, but it might be that they're still in the background unconsciously preparing for the worst, just in case. And all that positive energy is kind of overloading them, really, trying to make sure that everything's all right. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that we do see.
sometimes you sort of, it's like the tears of a clown, isn't it? Those really positive people can be the ones. I'm a dreadful worrier, and people say you never look like you worry. But I think because if you're quite outgoing and you're quite gregarious, people think that you don't worry, and sometimes those people are the worst. Jane said, is it projecting fears onto things that are going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very often these fears are an unconscious process. So it may not be that you're consciously aware of it. And that's why what I help people to do in the book is to stop and look at what are those unhelpful beliefs, what are those unhelpful expectations, which effectively are a fear. And people might say, well, no, I'm not afraid of that, but it acts as a fear, as a danger, if there's an unhelpful sort of expectation, a negative expectation. So, yeah.
Are you a worrier, Joanna?
I don't know. I would say probably not. I mean, I've got my children. I know for sure. The twins are 18 now, and they both know that they have. We call them "what if" worries, because when they start, if they don't like change, they don't like anything sort of unexpected. So we have to go through is it a what if worry rather than an actual worry? So I know, what sort of age group does your book support? Is it everyone?
Everyone, really, yeah. I mean, I've worked with people from teens right up to people in their 80s. So, yeah, it doesn't matter what age, we can still make a change.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
I know, going back to the original question, whether I'm a worrier, I know my age, menopause, my sleep pattern is the first thing to actually be affected if I've got a really busy mind. And it's not necessarily a worry or anything, because I'm just cramming my day full of stuff that I want to be doing and juggling lots of things. But I think going back to even though I'm sitting at my desk and I'm not sort of like running around all day and everything, at night time, that might be the night that I have a really bad night's sleep, because my brain's still sort of like full of stuff. Not worrying, but it's a similar sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I find it really hard to switch. Jane says she has to sleep when she's stressed or worried, but that's your fight or flight, isn't it, Sandra?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, in reaction to being stressed, we will either fight, which can mean that we become a bit manic, or we might become angry, or we might become, you know, a little bit more agitated, or we might find that we flee, so we run away from it, or we might freeze, which can sometimes be that we just shut down and we have to just, you know, our body tells us that we've got to rest. But it might be that Jane's saying, do you know, when I feel stressed, what I know I need to do is to calm myself down and bring myself to a nice restful place, which is another way. You know, you can say, right, okay, I know that I've done too much, so I'm going to have some time out. I'm going to give my body a chance to relax, which will allow my mind to reset as well. So it depends whether she's doing that consciously as a way of dealing with the stress, or is it something that is an automatic response, which can sometimes be your body just going, nope, you're not doing anymore. Which, you know, when stress goes on for a long time, you see that in chronic fatigue syndrome, things like that.
Which she says she regards it as a reboot.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, definitely.
I like that. Yeah.
And if that's a conscious choice to do that as well, or it's part of her routine to do that, then that's a really healthy thing to do when you know. But there are times, particularly like this week, when I'm busy trying to do all my edits and stuff like that, where you just have got to go at a faster pace than normal. But you've got to know how to balance that out as well.
Yeah. And it's going back to the sort of athlete analogy. I use that a lot, you know, because as an athlete, the periods of rest are every bit as important as the periods of training, because you can't do one without the other. And actually that recuperation and that regeneration time, you physically couldn't do the other stuff without it. And yet we don't always, you know, I got into the practice of taking my dog for a walk for 2 hours every day, and I was thinking, oh, I've got so much to do. I can't walk my dog for 2 hours. That's really lazy, and you know, I should be working. And I for a few weeks I haven't. Well, maybe 2 or 3 weeks I've been super busy and I haven't done it. And I'm thinking, do you know what? I'm not sure I'm achieving loads more. I don't feel better because I feel guilty. The poor dog's wondering why she's not going for a walk, and I'm not walking as much. And actually, that time out to recharge, to get a bit of fresh air, to get a bit of perspective, to get a little bit go through the list in your mind of like, okay, I can do that when I get back. That's really powerful. And I think, like Jane said before, we don't always give ourselves permission to do that, do we?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is about looking at what is important, really. And certainly, like you say, there might be the odd time when you get out of sync with those things, but always come back and know that that's the thing that makes the difference. That's important. Yeah.
Jane says, you're a long time dead, Karen. Take the walks. That's
Absolutely.
wise advice, Jane.
That balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you say, and you do have to be kind to yourself as well in both ways. You know, sometimes there might be times when you can't do it. Don't beat yourself up about it, but just get back on track with what you know helps as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pick up on something Joanna said earlier when she was talking about the what ifs.
Yeah.
And you know, that is a really common thing for warriors actually, to keep saying, but what if? And I said to somebody the other day, because I said, you know, do you find that what ifs come up quite often? And they said yes. And I said, but what if something good was going to happen? Do you ever think that? And they were like, no, just what ifs are always going to be bad. I'm like, but what if it turns out really well? But what if you're really successful at it? But what if everything goes according to plan? Do you ever think that? And they're like, no. So it's just about thinking about what ifs. It's just an interesting point. How when people talk about what ifs, they always seem to be in the negative. So maybe start shifting some of your what ifs into a positive.
You're absolutely right. When we go what if, it's like, what if something terrible? What we never think, what if this is amazing? What if we always go with the negative, don't we?
Yeah.
It's why do we do that? The other day I was having a real wobble. I think the old menopause plays havoc with your brain, sends you a bit nuts for a little while. And I was really in a funk. And I think sometimes when your hormones sort of do that, you sometimes get a bit of I get times where I feel quite low, and I don't know why I feel low, and I'm sure I probably am just a bit hormonal, and it passes. And I sort of, I think I did go for a stomp in the woods. I didn't go for a walk. I went for a stomp, an angry stomp. But, and so at one point I sort of checked my inner voice and thought, my God, if I spoke to anybody how I've just internally spoken to myself, I'd probably either be in jail or I'd have a fat lip, because you just wouldn't speak to someone like that, would you? But yourself, I can say some really horrid things without even realizing it, put myself down or tell myself you're rubbish, you haven't, and it's all the things I haven't done. So I've tried consciously, and this has partly been reading your book, Sandra, I have to say, and partly, because I'm trying to kind of make that, like Jane says, you're a long time dead, oh yes, I'll say it in a minute, Jane, but do the stuff. But I'm trying consciously to say, well, actually, yeah, you didn't do that, but I've been going to bed going, yeah, but you've done this today, Karen. You did this, you did this, you did this, you achieved that, and you did that. Even if it was, you managed to put on lipstick today, Karen, well done. Or you managed to not, leave the house in utter carnage before. Even if it's little wins, and that has shifted my kind of whatever it is, it really has. She said, Jane says, our inner voice is the one we hear the most often, so good or bad. So you've got to really consciously think. Jane says, do warriors work better with a plan? As in, if there's a plan, you can change it.
I think certainly one of the things that is a common theme among warriors. I have to keep saying that really slowly.
It's quite a tongue twister, isn't it? We won't drink too much wine before we do this.
I've only had one tiny sip. Is that uncertainty can bring a lot of stress, and the more uncertainty around us, the more uncomfortable it can feel. And I do definitely spend quite a bit of time helping people change that perception. But certainly, like you say, one of the things that you can do is to ensure that you are clear and focused on what is certain. But it can tip the other way sometimes, because if often what you might find is coping strategies arising in order to be able to cope with the underlying like fears, for whatever you want to call them. So if somebody has got a fear of uncertainty, they will spend so much time, this is not everybody, but sometimes spend so much time creating a plan, needing to stick to a plan, having everything in order to make sure that plan is completely watertight, which can mean that that's how they cope. But again, that can bring problems as well, because you end up with feeling completely stressed if it doesn't go according to plan, or working yourself into a frenzy trying to get that plan in place. So again, it's about getting that balance.
And so you're sort of putting a plaster on a broken leg there, aren't you? You're kind of trying to deal with the fallout, but you've not really got to the, and I don't, you can't change the, some people are more organised than others. Some people we're all different. So you're not suggesting you completely change your personality, but there is a balance, isn't there, between using nothing but coping strategies and never actually solving. It's like, it's like taking hundreds of headache pills and never actually understanding why you have the headache. It's that kind of thing, isn't it, really, I suppose? Yeah. Jackie's just said, I'm super sorry, I'm very late, and I'm a super worrier. She's worrying because she's late.
Do you know what? There's probably every one of us to some degree has got an element of worrier within them. And it's, people that say that they don't, well, they've got very good coping strategies in place, probably. And it is just, as you say, about getting in control of calming that. So it's not taking over, because it is natural when, challenges arise for us to contemplate, to think about them, to think about, have we done the right thing? Are we doing the right thing?
But that contemplation is helpful, isn't it? As well, you don't want to banish that. Jane says the reason for asking is her son is in his final year of school, and she spent a couple of hours planning today so that he could visualize the scope of his work to make it possible to rejig to give flexibility. Now that's a sensible approach to planning, isn't it? I think, and I'm sure Jane won't mind me saying she is a planner. She's quite an organized, in a good way. She's a very organized person. She quite likes structure, and she approaches things in quite an organised fashion. And there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
No, absolutely. It can make us really productive. And one of the things I say is that sometimes there could still be that there's an underlying fear behind it, but that actually creates some very positive attributes. And that's to be celebrated. And when I'm working with clients, I often say, don't worry, you're not going to lose all the good things. We just want you to make sure that you feel comfortable. And if it doesn't feel like those worries are taking over, if it doesn't feel like that it's getting in the way of, what you want to do, then that's all fine. It might be the driver that makes sure that you are organised, because the last thing you want to do is not achieve or not succeed or whatever it is that, you've got in mind. But so long as it's not getting in your way, then
she worked as a program manager for years, she said, so that's
we learn different strategies, don't we, to achieve different goals, to achieve different outcomes. And we can see that actually by being, carrying out those strategies helps us feel more calm, more organised, and worry less. And like you say, being able to share that with her son has made a difference to his day, because he's now not, he's created some clarity. He's created, he's more aware of what is it that he's got to do, and his brain can then process it. And it's when everything's spinning around in our heads and we can't process it that we start to get a little bit panicky.
The chaos, isn't it? I must admit, I do like a list. If I'm really busy, and I think especially as well, if you've got a bit of a creative brain, you can sort of ping around from thing to thing. And I was feeling like, oh God, so I've literally made myself like a school timetable so I'm going to do this at this time, this at this, because otherwise I get to the end of the day and I think, God, I've done so much and I don't know. Jane said clarity would be lovely. Jackie says, I suspect you've done this. We haven't spoken about this yet, Jackie, actually, to be fair, and this is a great point. I was a massive self-medicator with alcohol, she says, and unable to see. I was reaching for my wine glass.
Yeah, we've both got
and unable to see a different way out, or perhaps thinking I was dealing with it, until multiple therapies happened and years of being on the planet. I mean, we do live and learn, don't we, just by bitter experience. But the book talks a lot about self-medication, doesn't it?
Certainly it reflects on the coping strategies that we create to to deal with the stress. Like Jackie says, the awareness is the first instance. Sometimes we don't even realize that some of these things that we're doing are helping us through. When we, and that can be anything, like you say, from it would be what you might call self-soothing strategies as opposed to medication or whatever, because sometimes it's not just eating or drinking, it might be over-exercising, it might be overworking. All of these things are there to sort of obliterate those uncomfortable feelings that we might be having. But again, it's looking behind those things at what the emotions are that's underneath it. What is it that you're feeling uncomfortable about? And again, like we're saying, taking time out to become aware of those things is the first step to change. Because if you try changing some of those habits without the awareness of why they're there in the first place, what they're doing is, supporting you, how they're supporting you, something else will just crop up somewhere else along the line, most probably.
Or you could feel even more out of your depth, because then,
because
then you're like, oh my God, I haven't got that crutch to lean on anymore. And now I felt worse than I did before. So I think the root of all this is is actually not only the recognition and the understanding where it comes from, because it's like everything in life. If we understand it, we can address it, can't we? If we, understand, knowledge is power, don't they say? If you can understand it, then that's probably got to be easier, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the first step of the process, is awareness, that I describe in the book. So we talk quite a bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of that kind of avoidance tactic, isn't it? If something's uncomfortable, you try and do everything you can to avoid it. And if you means having a drink or going to the gym or whatever, I'm never going to have that problem. I'm never going to over-exercise. I don't think I'm going to.
Well, it sounds like Jackie's successfully found a way through that, from what she was saying.
Jackie's amazing. Jackie's, she's not. She's quite open about she's had struggles with her mental health, and she's a very quite a sensitive person, I would say. She's quite a spiritual person. She's quite a sensitive person. She would, and in the best possible way. And that's the thing, is it some of those things that can be harmful to us are also our best attributes, aren't they? Sometimes, that is kind of that real. She says she can't wait to read it. She said, I still do those things to a point, but I'm much further along the line, if you get my drift. But she's she's great. Jackie's lovely.
Well, she uses a lot of exercise, not doing a lot of it, but that's what her one of her focuses is, isn't it? Is to move to improve your mood. I think that's Jackie's.
Move your mood. And not only is that helping your psychology, it's helping your physicality as well.
Absolutely. And again, there's such an overlap. And as you'll read in the book, there's different. I normally suggest, as part of the actions alongside the process that I've suggested, is to clear your mind, free your body, and feed your soul. And there's different actions that sort of fit into, but they're all interconnected, and it's all and again, it's all down to the individual, what the individual is,
what you've got to discover yourself a little bit and find out what it is that's going to heal you. Jane says that Jackie is emotionally intelligent, and I would absolutely. She's very in tune with people. She's very, so that can sometimes mean that you're quite sensitive to things, but that's also a real real attribute in itself. We need emotionally intelligent people in the world, don't we?
Yes, definitely. When people are quite sensitive to their environment, and I believe that we're all on a spectrum of sensitivities. It can be really a real struggle, because they become impacted by so much of what's going on around them, because they do absorb what's happening around them so much more. But to be aware that you're somebody like that is important, so that you can protect yourself to some degree as well. But like you say, there's a flip side, there's a positive side to being somebody that's particularly sensitive, because you can align yourself to other people and understand other people really well. So yeah,
she's learning yoga, so she's learning a deeper technique, which is the breath. She's breathing, which is always good to know.
yeah.
This makes me I think as well, I love the bit about feeding your soul, because I think that's super important. Empaths, Jane is saying, yeah, we need empaths,
Yes,
don't we? The
absolutely.
world is a bit short on empaths sometimes. But I remember I worked with a head teacher. She was a very wise, really great head teacher, really nice lady. And I was going through a bit of a tough time, and particularly financially, some things had conspired, and I was struggling to sort of balance the books, as it were, and I was a single parent, and it was just all a bit of a tricky time. And she said to me, Karen, she said she'd gone through not as a single parent, but she'd gone through a similar time where she'd had to kind of balance the books with regards to money and all of that. And she said, what I did was I sat down, she said, and I wrote myself, and I know this relates to money, but there is a point to my thought process, is that she said, I sat down and I wrote a really strict budget of everything I had to pay, and so that I could see, right, okay, I need to earn this much, I need to pay this. She said, and I factored in my weekly round of golf. And I was like, that's a bit frivolous, blimey, like you're short on money and you go. She said, no, because that is my sanity. She said, if I take that away and all I'm doing is, and this is going back to Jane's earlier point, you're a long time dead, she said, all I'm doing is the stuff that I don't particularly enjoy and the stuff that doesn't really feed my soul. She said, what's going to give me the motivation to continue? What's going to make me pursue this kind of course of action for the greater good? And I've often thought of that, and I thought, you know what, she's right. She's really right.
It is important. And like you say, perhaps we don't spend enough time looking at those things that we enjoy. And they don't get put on top of the list. They're also things that fall off the bottom of the list when we're under pressure or whatever, aren't they? But recognising that it's an important part in being healthy and happy, perhaps we might take more time to consider what those things are.
Crucial. Do you make time for yourself, Joanna? Are you good at that? Do you kind
Definitely.
Are you?
Yeah,
good girl. Well, otherwise, yeah, definitely I do.
No, I'm not going
to your soul, Joanna.
No, I juggle with. I mean, it's harder at the moment because I haven't been able to sort of go on with girls' holidays and things like that. But I wouldn't say. I mean, tomorrow I'm going on a yoga retreat all day, and I do go to the gym and I do sort of like have that sort of time out. But then I also have nights out with friends and things. I've always got something planned. But I also work from dusk till dawn, sort of like all the other way around, every day, to be able to sort of free up time to do that. It's got harder since writing, I must admit.
It's like another job, isn't it? It's an extra job.
Because it's you're still juggling like a full-time job and a passion, and when you're doing that as a sort of a mixture, you're not unwinding. And I mean, I am now, because I'm following I'm watching The American Office, so that's my sort of like wind down every night. Me and my husband sit there and sort of giggle and laugh about that.
We need guilty pleasures, don't we? We need guilty pleasures. We do. Jane says, "Work to live, not live to work." Absolutely, Jane. Yeah. Jackie wants to come on the yoga retreat with you, Joanna. Where are you going? Where are you going?
You can tell Jackie we're waiting for hers.
Yes.
Jackie, no pressure. You need to run a yoga retreat or some kind of, or wouldn't that be lovely, just to sit around and meditate and, oh my God, and have Indian head massage, and that would be, that would be
together on that one, Jackie, definitely.
Yeah, we're on it.
I haven't done any retreats for a couple of, because of lockdown. I was due to run one Easter time, I think. I've lost track of the years. That was last year, I think, wasn't it? So I hadn't planned anything this year. That one was cancelled, and I haven't planned anything this year. So I need to start looking at what I'm going to deliver next year.
So Jackie says she's in the new year restorative, and Jane says sign me up. So we're all going.
Oh, good. Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds
brilliant.
Yes.
And Jackie says, so why did you finally decide to write the book, Sandra? What was the catalyst?
Well, I've been talking about it for too long, I think, basically, and I'm just like, I have to do it. I've been talking about writing it for certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been saying, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. I started writing a little bit more focused into the pain side of things, but I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to write a more generic one. I might, if I ever consider writing another one, focus back into that just specifically for clients with pain. But there's a huge overlap, really, and that's why I thought it's not just for the clients with pain, because there's such an overlap with other things. So that's why I thought, I'll go with the bigger thing. And then, luckily, I met Karen.
Yeah,
I've had it on my vision board for a number of years.
Have you?
But I had decided, right, this year, whatever year it is, I'm losing track of it. Is it 20?
I've lost a whole year. I keep saying, I started this in 2019, and
and then I met Karen through networking, and we had a one-to-one or whatever, and I thought, well, there's someone here that's gonna help me on this journey, because I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I keep putting it off and starting it and stopping it. But having the whole process of Karen to be able to sort of be accountable to somebody in the first instance, to have somebody to show me where my corners need to go, because I'm not very good at that.
Oh, do you know what? My red pen has gone.
I know. I'm
going
to buy Karen some new red pens.
Yeah, that's what Jackie said.
I don't know what you know, to have your experience and your expertise, and then have the facilities to be able to help us publish it and promote it as well. It's just like a dream come true. So
it's been my pleasure. It's been one of the best journeys in my life. It's really been enriching, and you know, I like to think I've given you value and taught you a lot, but I've learned so much too. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot, you know. It's just been a really enriching Jackie said she owes me. I put red and green on Jackie's. Poor Jackie had double wow. I was like, that's red, and now I've changed my mind, so that's green. She was like, oh my God. So I did actually go on eBay, and I bought about a pack of like 12 different coloured pens. So so Jackie asks if you teach Pilates, and this is a weird story, isn't it? You know, me and Jackie joke a little bit. Jane, you might get some green when I edit yours. If I get really excited, you get green as well. But this whole journey, and I joke because we always call her a bit woo woo, you know. But it's the more I'm going on, the more I'm thinking this is real, this stuff, you know. And I didn't believe in serendipity even remotely like I do now, but the whole thing of like Beverly in the group, we went to school together 2 years apart. Janie's a friend of Beverly's who lives in Ireland. Fiona worked in the restaurant below the flat where I used to live. It's like we've all been drawn together by some weird magnetic force. Anyway, I met Sandra through networking, thought, yeah, she's great, love Sandra. Yeah, she's going to write a book. And then I spoke to my very good friend, Lisa. She went, oh my God, Sandra's been teaching me Pilates for years. I was like, no. It was like a whole 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Bizarre, really.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I can't believe it's kind of feels like it was meant to be, because we've all, you know, even with, I would never have met Joanna or collaborated with, you know, me and Joanna are, you know, miles apart geographically. We got completely different lives, you know, and the way we've all sort of come together, it's been lovely, really, but quite a little bit tales of the unexpected. There's a book in there in itself. I think
you couldn't have written it. That's what you want to say. If you hadn't done, they'd have gone, no, that's not true.
That's a bit weird. What, she worked in the restaurant where you live? Whatever, you know. And it was at the same time, I think she actually waited on my table when we ate there. We consider, I mean, how weird is that? You know, I know, it's bizarre. Have you ever seen this film Sliding Doors?
Yes, yeah.
I love that film. You know, where the whole concept, have you seen it, Joanna?
don't think I have. No.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's
very good.
brilliant.
Watch it.
It's Gwyneth Paltrow. The guy who was in Bread wrote it, didn't he? The guy who was
Oh,
the
did you?
handsome son in Bread. You know, do you remember? I'm showing my age now. It's about a million years
I
ago.
do remember that.
Yeah. And it's got Gwyneth Paltrow, and it's all about like two scenarios. So the doors close on the train like a second before, and one scenario takes place. She misses the train and something happens, and then in the other scenario, she gets on the train and something different happens. It's brilliant. But it's so like, oh my God, yeah, that how your life can change in literally a second just by sort of circumstance. Yeah, so it's been this whole coming together has been odd but lovely at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we must have manifested something along the way, because that's another one of my interests, isn't it? About how we can create our own reality, which I touch on to some degree.
Yeah, I need to speak to you more about that, because I'm really all over that. I really want to. I don't think I do it properly, so I want to learn more about that and how to do it properly. I want to learn more about proper affirmations, because I don't think I do those properly. Gratitudes are quite easy, I think, because it's easy to say, well, I'm grateful for, you know, and again, when you do that, you start to be grateful for the tiniest little things.
Absolutely, yeah.
You
definitely.
know,
but it's also important when you do the gratitudes to remember the emotion that goes with it, because you get even more of a powerful impact if you do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the plan is that once the book's published at the beginning of next year, I'll be running some workshops alongside. So the book basically is a bit of a an outline to what the workshops will be, so that you'll get an opportunity to look at some of this stuff yourself, but actually in a group scenario, you can work through some of these things with me as well.
Oh, I'd be well up for that. I'm really interested in it, because, and I think there's power in it, because you know, how do these people like what Jane says? Oh, bless you, Jane. I was delighted to find you too. She said, I was delighted to find you, Karen. Bev told me you were a couple of years behind us in school. And I love the mindfulness. She came on the mindfulness writing course and then joined the writing group after that. So that's awesome. But and Jane says, Jackie says she's coming to the workshops, and Jane's quite, her interest is peaked there. So you'll have a full house, because I genuinely believe, you know, the power, the way your mind can control your body. That you know, Sibu Sisu, the guy I rave all the time about, the lovely man who climbed Everest twice, and you know, how can you do that if not for the fact of mind over matter? He runs ultra marathons, like 95 kilometers. I don't think I've run 95 kilometers in my entire life, let alone in one go. and he'll do an ultra marathon and then come back on the Monday and go and climb up Kilimanjaro, something ridiculous. You know, physically, some of the stuff he does, you think, there's no way. There's no way that's possible. So your mind is so, if you tell yourself you can do something, you can do it, can't you? And if you tell yourself you can't do something,
oh, absolutely,
that's so powerful, isn't it? Your mind saying, well, you're never going to do that. That ain't going to work. And you can feel yourself being talked out of it, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You'll find evidence for whatever beliefs you have. So whatever belief you allowed to dominate, your brain will find the evidence for it, and that will mean that's where you end up. Yeah.
Jackie says we could all do it, maybe. Jane, slightly scared, says not the ultra marathon. I think Jackie's. I hope Jackie's talking about the workshops. I don't think. I'm hoping
she's not talking about the 95 kilometres.
No, because there ain't no mind that's going to help me through that one. But yeah, it's true. What you give your energy to.
Yeah.
Like, you know, don't you? If you're feeling a bit down and you're wearing groggy old tracksuit bottoms and you can't. No, she's talking about Everest. No, Jackie, we're not climbing Everest, Jack. She won't. We'll wave to you and you can send us pictures. That'd be lovely. I'll send you up there with Sibu.
I wouldn't mind a challenge of some sort, but maybe.
Yeah, no. And I don't like the cold, and I couldn't wear enough layers.
Chat about it, Jackie.
She got all excited now. yeah, you know, you're slobbing around the house, you put no makeup on, you look in the mirror, you think, God, I look awful, I can't leave. You know, you can very quickly get yourself into that negative place, can't you? And so, you know, what Jackie's a big one with you know, what you give your energy, what you feed will grow, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I usually say what you focus on is what you find.
Yeah, yeah. Jane's going to be in base camp with the gin and tonic.
Yeah.
I'm with Jane. Be like Jane.
I thought we're jumping in the Irish sea next year with the old strip and dip.
I'll do that. As long as I haven't got to swim anywhere. Yeah, as long as I'm in and out, I'll be a what is it, whiter shade of pale? I don't know.
Unless we do it in Whitstable, we come down.
Yeah, that. Tell Sandra about that, Joanna.
Oh, a couple of years ago, me and my friend went off to support a charity that breast cancer awareness and things. I think they're called the Sea of Change Choir. They jump into the sea. They do like they went in the Guinness Book of Records for the biggest strip and dip, and we took part. And it was cold.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
I think cold is an understatement.
Yeah, but it was so emotional. It was so amazing, the whole experience.
How many of you did it?
Oh, thousands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't remember now how many, but it was, they are in the Guinness Book of Records for the most people that did this strip and dip at the same time. I think we beat Ireland beat Australia.
Oh,
so
wow.
Lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
And like you say, that collective energy of everyone doing something together with the same.
Yeah. Jane's saying breast cancer survivors, but Joanna said there were people there who'd had like breast operations, people with colostomy bags, all in their glory, saying, look, this is me. I mean, what a beautiful. Jane said, sweet Jesus, that'd be freezing. I think, Jane, that is the understatement of the century. I don't think there's a word for how cold that's going to be. Jackie said, what you focus on, you will find. She said that's beautiful. She's not heard it that way. The Sea of Change Choir is wonderful, Jane says. She says about breast cancer survivors. And they sang in the European Parliament.
Oh, wow.
So Jackie says, can we all do that? I'd be up for that, Jax. As long as I haven't got being there too long. I think what a great cause. So, Fiona would definitely be out for that. She's always out somewhere dressed as a giant booby.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Yeah, that'd be
swimming.
Yeah. I'm not much of a swimmer, but I can do a bit of extreme paddling. I can manage that. So yeah,
you have to go up to your neck anyway.
Yeah, that's all right.
Actually, yeah.
As long as I can crouch down. I'm not great at the depth, but yeah, we should do it in Whitstable.
You wouldn't want to be, if it's a strip and dip, I wouldn't want to be out of the water too much anyway.
I don't know what's worse, standing on the beach naked or up to your neck in freezing cold water. I'm not sure which is more terrifying, actually.
The water, definitely the water, because everyone else is naked. So it doesn't matter. Whereas like the water is, there was parts of me that went numb that I didn't realise was so numb.
I bet the boys had a fun time.
There was only one, but
all the other boys chickened out. Jane said, if I was naked, the world would need me to be immersed. And Jackie says, come on then. Yeah, me too. I will get hypothermia, but I can do it. In Whitstable, they do like a New Year's Day swim. And a lot of the old Whitster Bubbliums have these, they're called something like something blanket or something cape. And they're these big kind of toweling capes, and you see them all, they do the swim, and then they've got these massive capes that they put
dry robe things they're called.
Yeah, that's it. Basically, so they don't die of the cold.
I did my first water swim a little while ago in lake, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. But when I came out, I think my body just went into shutdown, and I started shaking, and
got to be careful,
burning up, and it was just it was such a shame because I really enjoyed the experience, but my body didn't like it.
No. You get cold water shock, can't you? It's quite dry robes. That's it, Jane. That's it. Yeah. I'd need a heated dry robe. I don't know if you can get a heated one.
I think I probably needed to kind of move a bit more rather than just. I went straight back to the car and tried getting changed in the car, and it wasn't very warm, and that was probably not the best
Yeah,
after.
probably a bit
There's probably a bit of
hypothermic.
strategy for when you come out, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, Jane will be there with the G&T, so that's all we'll need, I think. So, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you tonight, Sandra. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for working with me. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you, not only because you're a beautiful person, but I've really enjoyed your book, and I've learned a lot, and it's been, like I say, it's been lovely to have that diversity and that variety within the group. We've got thank you, Jane. Jane says brandy. Yes, I think for wild water swimming day, I think brandy is probably, we need something with a bit of muscle. It's been lovely to have you in the group, because we've got 2 novels, 2 kids books, and a non-fiction book, and a partridge in a pear tree now. So that's been really, really lovely. It's been really lovely.
Thank you for having me here tonight, and for helping me through my author journey.
Yeah, and Sandra's going to be published with Mabel and Stanley Publishing, and if you go on the website, karenstanley-author.co.uk, all of my featured authors will be on there. I'm just building a page for them currently, like a little hall of fame. And then we've also got our author event at the lovely Store 104 in Rochester on the 27th of November. Be there or be square. Sandra's going to do a little bit of Pilates, a little bit of meditation, and more meditation and relaxation session. I'm going to be talking about mindfulness and the power of journaling and mindfulness writing. And then the other authors are going to be there to meet and greet, read extracts from their books. That's on Saturday, the 27th of November from 10 until 2. So that's going to be a great day. And then we've got a book launch party on the 3rd of December at Dragon Co-working, where we will definitely be having 1 or 2 G&Ts. Jackie says, look forward to the book, Sandra. And Joanna, she needs to get book 2 from Adele. Right. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
So it's been a lovely chat, and really informative. I've learned a lot. We can't wait for these workshops. So when Sandra starts running these workshops, we'll be promoting them out all over the place. And where can people find you, Sandra?
Well, you can contact me through my website at bodymind-solutions.co.uk, or find me on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And Sandra's great. She's the voice of reason and nice and calm.
I can't wait to read all the others as well, because I've had snippets about all of them, but because I joined the journey a little bit later on, I haven't been 100%. I can't wait to read all of theirs as well.
They're great. I've yet to read all of Jane's. I can't wait for that, because she made a valiant start, and I really want, I thought, I can't wait to read it. I've just finished Jackie's, awesome. Bev's is now done, beautiful, really lovely kids book, and Fiona's is written in rhyme. It's just charming, and she's designed all of the illustrations herself. It looks beautiful. There's Jackie with a cactus emojis. That's Jane's book is called The Cactus Growers Club. Jackie loves an emoji. She is emoji mad. If there is a coping strategy that uses emojis, Jackie's your girl.
That's it. It's lovely to been here tonight. Thank you so much.
It's been really nice, and thanks again, Joanna. Always lovely to see you. It's always a pleasure. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us live, if you've managed it live. If you catch us on the replay, big love to you all. And if you've got any questions or comments, then please do comment. We love to hear what you think and what you're feeling at the moment. And Sandra's book will be published at the end of November. How exciting does it feel to say that, Sandra?
Very, very exciting.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous feeling. It's a gorgeous feeling. So thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Good night. God bless. Take care, and see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.